Tonight, I'm going to tell you a French story that is called The Trousers. Anybody here wearing trousers? Okay, this might help. I don't know if you've had this experience before, but when I was a little girl in France, once a year, twice a year, there was an aunt of mine who used to give my mom a big bag full of clothes. This aunt, she loved buying clothes. And she loved buying clothes so much that she would change clothes very often during the year. And then any clothes she didn't want anymore, she would put in the big bag. And the big bag would go around all my family. And so people would go look in the bag, maybe find one thing that suited them, and then pass the bag around. My story is about a French family. In this family, there was a little boy called Marc. And he lived in a house full of women. There was his grandmother, his mother, his older sister, Catherine, and his younger sister, Anne. On this particular day, Marc was alone at home with his grandmother, and a neighbor rang the doorbell. She was giving to the family a big black sack full of unwanted clothes. Well, for once, Marc could have a look, the first one in the house. So, as soon as the bag landed in the living room, he rummaged through it. Barbie t-shirt, no good. Purple tights, no good. Pink dress, no good. And then, eventually, in the bottom of the bag, he found it. Oh, that's good now. It was a pair of bright yellow corduroy trousers. They were very cool at the time. He thought, great, these ones are for me. He folded them under his arm and quickly ran up the stairs, went into his bedroom and tried them on. He looked into the mirror. The trousers were a good fit. They were good at the waist. They were good along the legs. But he thought maybe they were a little bit long. The trousers, they were rubbing against the floor. But he wasn't quite sure. So he went to see his grandmother. She was in her study. He said, "Grandma, look." "Oh, Marc, turn around. They fit you very well. But aren't they a little bit long?" And Marc said, "Well, Grandma, I thought that maybe you could shorten them for me." "Well, I certainly could. That would be easy. But you see, Marc, not now. I am putting a bit of order in my old letters. And this is a fascinating job. I cannot do this now. What you will do is, you will fold those trousers, put them at the back of a chair in the living room, and I will do that for you tomorrow." That wasn't really what Marc wanted to hear. He already had imagined in his little mind that the following day he would go to school wearing the new trousers and he would make such an impression. By that stage, his mother and sisters had come back. So Marc went to see his mother. "Mom, look!" "Oh, Marc, they're really smart. They're really smart, but they're a little bit too long." "Yes, Mom, I know. I was wondering, would you be able to shorten them for me?" "Well, certainly, Marc, but I can't do that now. I've got 2 lasagnas and 2 chocolate cakes to bake tonight." What you will do is, fold your trousers at the back of a chair in the living room, and I will fix them for you tomorrow. This was not what Marc wanted to hear. Sure, he wanted them ready for the following morning. So he went looking for his older sister, Catherine. He found her in the bathroom. She was getting ready and doing something like this. "Catherine!" Oh, Marc, look at you, how smart. Turn around. They're great, but they're a little bit too long. "I know, Catherine, I was wondering, could you shorten them for me?" "Oh, yeah, I'll do that, but not now. I'm getting ready to go to the disco." This is not what Marc wanted to hear. He wanted to wear the trousers the next day. Who could he try? There was only one last person in the house, his younger sister, Anne. Reluctantly, he knocked at her door. "Who's there?" "It's me, it's Marc." All right, come in." He found his sister Anne playing with her dolls. And she said, "Yellow trousers, they're brilliant. Did you find them in the bag? Oh, unfair." "Well, they're not your size anyway. They're too long." "I know, and I know. But I was wondering, you're really good at sewing at school. You always get the best marks. Do you think you'd be able to shorten my trousers for me?" "Yeah, I could do that, but not now. I'm playing with my dolls." That is not what Mark wanted to hear. What could he do now? There was only one thing he could do. He went back into his room and he sulked. He was sulking. Can you sulk for me? Do you know how to sulk? Oh yeah, very good. Sulking. Eventually, he got a little bit fed up with sulking, so he took off his yellow trousers, put on his pajamas, went down into the living room, and folded his trousers at the back of one of the living room chairs. And then he went back to his room and did some more sulking. Sulking. Meanwhile, his sister, Anna, while she was playing with her dolls, got a little bit angry with them. And she said to them, "Dolls, I am not playing with you anymore. I'm fed up." And then she stood in the opposite corner of the room to her dolls, ignoring them. And then she thought, well, she would be even better at ignoring her dolls if she was in a different room. So she left her bedroom and went wandering around the house until she found herself in the living room. She spotted the yellow trousers and she thought, my dolls are going to be even more disgusted if instead of playing with them, I am sewing. So she took the yellow trousers, brought them to her bedroom, took her scissors and a little sewing kit and went chop, 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 chop. Ha. See that, dolls? I'm not playing with you. And then stitching the way she had learned at school very carefully, and the job was done. So she took the trousers, went downstairs, put them back on the back of the chair in the living room, and went back up. A little while later, the grandmother was sorting out her old letters. There were letters from 1941. And there were love letters too. Oh yes, André, I remember. The letter still smells of roses. Oh, René, oh yes. Oh, Marc, oh yes. There were all these men who used to write to her when she was younger. And as she read a letter written by a man called Marc, she thought of her grandson, who had the same name. And she felt a lot of love for all the men she had met in her life and for her grandson. And she was so filled with love that she thought, oh, my grandson, I love him. I will do this little job for him that he asked me to do. So she went down to the living room, she found the yellow trousers, and she took out her little sewing kit that she had had all her life, and she went, yeah, it's about that much. Chop, 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 sew, stitch, ready. So she put them back at the back of the chair in the living room and went back up to her room. A little while later, Marc's mother was in the kitchen. She was making 2 lasagnas and 2 chocolate cakes while listening to her favorite opera, Carmen. Ta 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 ram param pam param param pam pam pararam pam pam. L'amour est enfant de bohème, il n'a jamais connu de loi. Si tu ne m'aimes pas, je t'aime. Si je t'aime, prends garde à toi. The baking was going so well, in fact, that all her lasagnas and her cakes were in the oven. She just had to wait. And while she was waiting, sure, she could do this little bit of sewing that her son had asked her to. So she went into the living room, she found the yellow trousers at the back of the chair, took her little sewing kit and went, about that much. Chop, 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 stitch, 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 ready, voila! She put them back at the back of the chair and went to get her cakes and lasagnas out of the oven. And then she went to bed. A little while later, much later in fact, it was around 3 in the morning, a key turned in the door, And this was the older sister, Catherine, just back from the discotheque. She had had a great night because she had kissed the boy of her dreams, Mathieu Panager. Oh, she was so excited. And she was so excited, in fact, that she felt also full of love for Mathieu and for the whole world, including her brother. She arrived in the living room, she saw the yellow trousers, and she thought, I'm going to do that for my brother because I'm such a good sister. And so she took the scissors and she was singing her disco songs. This is the rhythm of the night, chop, 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 oh yeah, chop, chop, stitch, 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 the rhythm of the night. Et voila! She put them on the back of the chair in the living room and went to bed. And this is why, my friends, because of the love of the 4 women in his life, young Mark went to school the following day in short pants. Thank you.